Okay, today is in 22nd of July 2009, and we are on the 11th chapter of the Samyutta Nikaya, Sakka Samyutta, or the suttas that have to do with Sakka Devaraja. Now we come to 11.5. At Savatthi, the Buddha said, "Monks, once in the past, the Devas and the Asuras were arrayed for battle. Then Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, said to Sakka Devaraja, 'Lord of the Devas, let there be victory by well-spoken counsel.' And Sakka replied, 'Vipachiti, let there be victory by well-spoken counsel.' Then monks, the Devas and Asuras appointed a panel of judges, saying, 'These will ascertain what has been well spoken and badly spoken by us.' Then Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, said to Sakka Devaraja, 'Speak a verse, Lord of the Devas.' And this was said, Sakka said to Vipachiti, 'You, Vipachiti, being the senior Deva here, speak a verse.' And this was said, Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, recited this verse. Let's stop here for a moment. So here, the Asuras and the Devas were arrayed, ready to fight. And then this leader of the Asuras, he suddenly had an idea. He said, why don't we have a fight of words? We see who can speak better. So Sakka Devaraja agreed. So now Sakka Devaraja says, 'You are the elder Deva, so you speak first.' And this was said, Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, recited this verse. 'Fools would vent their anger even more if no one would keep them in check. Hence, with drastic punishment, the wise man should restrain the fool.' When monks, Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, spoke this verse, the Asuras applauded, but the Devas were silent. Then Vipachiti said to Sakka, 'Speak a verse, Lord of the Devas.' When this was said, Sakka Devaraja recited this verse. 'I myself think this alone is the way to check the fool. When one knows one's foe is angry, one mindfully maintains one's peace.' When monks, Sakka Devaraja, spoke this verse, the Devas applauded, but the Asuras were silent. Then Sakka said to Vipachiti, 'Speak a verse, Vipachiti.' And this was said, Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, recited this verse. 'I see this fault, O Vasava, in practicing patient endurance. When the fool thinks of you thus, he endures me out of fear. The dolt will chase you even more, as a bull does one who flees.'" Let's stop here for a moment. This Vasava is another name of Sakka Devaraja. When monks, Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, spoke this verse, the Asuras applauded, but the Devas were silent. Then Vipachiti said to Sakka, "Speak a verse, Lord of the Devas." And this was said, Sakka Devaraja recited these verses. "Let it be whether or not he thinks he endures me out of fear, of goals that culminate in one's own good, none is found better than patience. When a person endowed with strength patiently endures a weakling, they call that the supreme patience. The weakling must be patient always. They call that strength no strength at all, the strength that is the strength of folly. But no one can reproach a person who is strong because guarded by Dhamma. One who repays an angry man with anger, thereby makes things worse for himself. Not repaying an angry man with anger, one wins a battle hard to win. He practices for the welfare of both, his own and the others. When knowing that his foe is angry, he mindfully maintains his peace. When he achieves the cure of both, his own and the others, the people who consider him a fool are unskilled in the Dhamma. When monks, these verses were spoken by Sakka Devaraja. The Devas applauded, but the Asuras were silent. Then the panel of judges appointed by the Devas and Asuras said this: the verses spoken by Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, are in the sphere of punishment and violence. Hence they entail conflict, contention and strife. But the verses spoken by Sakka Devaraja are in the sphere of non-punishment and non-violence. Hence they entail freedom from conflict, freedom from contention, and freedom from strife. Sakka, Lord of the Devas, has won the victory by well-spoken counsel. In this way, monks, Sakka Devaraja won the victory by well-spoken counsel. Stop here. That's the end of the sutta. So you see the character of these two Devarajas. The Vipachiti is more fierce, more violent type. It's quick to use violence, but the Sakka Devaraja is very patient and does not allow himself to get angry or to vent his anger. That's the nature of the Asuras. They like to fight. 11.6 at Savatthi. Monks, once in the past, the Devas and the Asuras were arrayed for battle. In that battle, the Asuras won, and the Devas were defeated. In defeat, the Devas withdrew towards the north, while the Asuras pursued them. Then Sakka, Lord of the Devas, addressed his charioteer Matali in verse: avoid, O Matali, with your chariot pole, the bird nests in the silk cotton woods. Let's surrender our lives to the Asuras, rather than make these birds nestless. Yes, your lordship, Matali the charioteer replied, and he turned back the chariot with its team of 1,000 thoroughbreds. Stop here for a moment. So here Sakka Devaraja was in his chariot going full speed, being chased by the Asuras. But he saw ahead of him the bird nest on the trees. So he was afraid if they keep flying through the air like this, they may injure the bird nest and maybe kill the young birds. So he told his driver Matali, the Deva Matali, to turn the 1,000 white horses around to avoid the bird nest. Then monks, it occurred to the Asuras, now Sakka's chariot with its team of 1,000 thoroughbreds has turned back. The Devas will engage in battle with the Asuras for a second time. Stricken by fear, they entered the city of the Asuras. In this way, monks, Sakka Devaraja won a victory by means of righteousness itself. It's the end of the sutta. So here, when Sakka Devaraja's chariot turned back, made a U-turn, then the Asuras assume that there must be a lot of Devas behind. That's why he is coming back to fight again. So they got frightened and they ran off back to their city. So here Sakka Devaraja won because of righteousness. 11.9 at Savatthi. Monks, once in the past, a number of seers who were virtuous and of good character had settled down in leaf huts in a tract of forest. One moment, these seers are ascetics. In the Sanskrit word is rishis, rishi. In Thailand they call rishi. Then Sakka Devaraja and Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, approached those seers. Vipachiti, Lord of the Asuras, put on his boots, bound his sword on tightly, and with a parasol borne aloft, entered the hermitage through the main gate. Then having turned his left side towards them, he walked past those seers who were virtuous and of good character. But Sakka Devaraja took off his boots, handed over his sword to others, lowered his parasol, his umbrella, and entered the hermitage through an ordinary gate or a small gate. Then he stood on the lee side, raising his joined hands in reverential salutation, paying homage to those seers who were virtuous and of good character. Let's stop here for a moment. So you see, this Sakka Devaraja and this Vepachiti, sometimes they fight with each other, but sometimes they are friends. Because Sakka Devaraja has many wives, and one of his favorite wives is, I think, Sujampati, and that is the daughter of Vepachiti, the lord of the Asuras. So actually Vepachiti is the father-in-law of Sakka Devaraja. So in this sutta, they went together to see these ascetics in the forest. And Vepachiti, wearing his boots and with his sword and his umbrella high up, he walked through the main gate, quite proud. Then with his left side towards them. In his left side towards them shows not paying respect, because in the Indian tradition and probably in the Deva tradition, if you respect somebody, your right side must always face that person. But here he turned his left side towards them and walked past them. On the other hand, Sakka Devaraja took off his boots out of respect, and even his sword he handed over to a lesser Deva, and then lowered his umbrella and entered the hermitage through a small gate. Then he stood on the lee side, the lower side of the wind, the lower side of the wind, so that the wind goes first to the ascetics and then to him, out of respect. Then monks, those seers address Sakka in verse. The odor of the seers, long bound by their vows, emitted from their bodies, goes with the wind. Turn away from here, thousand-eyed God, for the seer's odor is foul, Devaraja. And Sakka Devaraja said, let the odor of the seers, long bound by their vows, emitted from their bodies, go with the wind. We yearn for this odor, venerable sirs. As for a garland of flowers on the head, the Devas do not perceive it as repulsive. That's the end of the sutta. So here, the seers understood that this Sakka Devaraja was standing on the lee side. In other words, when the wind blows, the smell of the ascetics, the human smell will go to this Devaraja. So they know that the human smell is very repulsive, very smelly to the Devas. And so they asked him not to stand there, but he told them that he respects them so much that he yearns for the smell, just like a garland of flowers on the head. So you see the character of Sakka Devaraja is very different from the Asura king. 11.11 at Savatthi. Monks, in the past, when Sakka Devaraja was a human being, he adopted and undertook 7 vows, by the undertaking of which he achieved the status of Sakka. What were the 7 vows? 1. As long as I live, may I support my parents. 2. As long as I live, may I respect the family elders. 3. As long as I live, may I speak gently. 4. As long as I live, may I not speak divisively. 5. As long as I live, may I dwell at home with a mind devoid of the stain of stinginess, freely generous, open-handed, delighting in relinquishment, devoted to charity, delighting in giving and sharing. 6. As long as I live, may I speak the truth. 7. As long as I live, may I be free from anger, and if anger should arise in me, may I dispel it quickly. In the past, monks, and Sakka Devaraja was a human being, he adopted and undertook these 7 vows, by the undertaking of which he achieved the status of Sakka. When a person supports his parents and respects the family elders, when his speech is gentle and courteous, and he refrains from divisive words, when he strives to remove meanness, is truthful and vanquishes anger, the Tavatimsa Devas call him truly a superior person. That's the end of the sutta. So here you see the formula is given to you on how to become a Devaraja. So you aspire to be a Devaraja, making vows is no use. You have to follow this formula. Support parents. Number 2, respect the elders. Number 3, speak gently. Number 4, not speak divisively. That means don't speak words that divide people. Like for example, if you hear A talking bad about B, you don't go and tell B, last night A said this and that, and then you cause A and B to quarrel. That is divisive speech. So you should speak in such a way as to make people unite and be in harmony. Then number 5, he is very generous, devoted to charity. Number 6, he only speaks the truth. Number 7, is always does not allow himself to be angry. This is very difficult for most people not to be angry, unless you have a very calm mind from meditation, or unless you have a very tranquil mind from meditation. It's very difficult to suppress anger. So these are the 7 good qualities to practice. Even if you can't practice all of it, you can practice a few. Hopefully you can become a Deva or a Devi from there. 11.12. At Savatthi in Jeta's Grove. There the Blessed One said to the monks, "Monks, in the past, when Sakka Devaraja was a human being, he was a Brahmin youth named Magha. Therefore, he is now called Maghava. Monks, in the past, when Sakka Devaraja was a human being, he gave gifts in city after city. Therefore, he is called Purindada, the urban giver. Monks, in the past, when Sakka Devaraja was a human being, he gave gifts considerately. Therefore, he is called Sakka. Monks, in the past, when Sakka Devaraja was a human being, he gave a rest house. Therefore, he is called Vassava. Monks, Sakka Devaraja thinks of 1,000 matters in a moment. Therefore, he is called Sahasaka, 1,000-eyed. You can also take it to mean that he has the psychic ability to see 1,000 places in a moment. Monks, Sakka's wife is the Asura maiden named Suja. Therefore, he is called Sujampati, Suja's husband. Monks, Sakka Devaraja exercises supreme sovereignty and rulership over the Tavatimsa Devas. Therefore, he is called Lord of the Devas, Devaraja. Monks, in the past when Sakka Devaraja was a human being, he adopted and undertook 7 vows, by the undertaking of which he achieved the status of Sakka. And these 7 vows are as I read just now. As long as I live, may I support my parents. As long as I live, may I respect the family elders. As long as I live, may I speak gently. As long as I live, may I not speak divisively. As long as I live, may I dwell at home with a mind devoid of the stain of stinginess, freely generous, open-handed, delighting in relinquishment, etc. Number 6, as long as I live, may I speak the truth. Number 7, as long as I live, may I be free from anger. And if anger should arise in me, may I dispel it quickly. So here we get to know why the Sakka Devaraja has these various names. 11.14. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. There the Blessed One addressed the monks thus, "Monks, Venerable Sir," those monks replied. The Blessed One said this, "Monks, once in the past, in this same Rajagaha, there was a poor man, a pauper and indigent. He undertook faith, virtue, learning, generosity, and wisdom in the Dhamma, Vinaya, proclaimed by the Tathagata. Having done so, with the breakup of the body after death, he was reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world, in the company of the Tavatimsa Devas, where he outshone the other Devas in regard to beauty and glory." Thereupon the Tavatimsa Devas found fault with this, grumbled and complained about it, saying, "It is wonderful indeed, sir. It is amazing indeed, sir. For formerly, when this young Deva was a human being, he was a poor man, a pauper, and indigent. Yet with the breakup of the body after death, he has been reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world, in the company of the Tavatimsa Devas, where he outshines the other Devas in regard to beauty and glory." Then monks, Sakka Devaraja addressed the Tavatimsa Devas thus, "Dear sirs, do not find fault with this young Deva. Formerly, when this young Deva was a human being, he undertook faith, virtue, learning, generosity and wisdom in the Dhamma Vinaya proclaimed by the Tathagata. Having done so, with the breakup of the body after death, he has been reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world, in the company of the Tavatimsa Devas, where he outshines the other Devas in regard to beauty and glory." Then monks, instructing the Tavatimsa Devas, Sakka Devaraja on that occasion recited these verses. "When one has faith in the Tathagata, unshakable and well established, and good conduct built on virtue, dear to the noble ones and praise. When one has confidence in the Sangha, and one's view is straightened out, they say that one isn't poor, one's life is not lived in vain. Therefore the person of intelligence, remembering the Buddha's teaching, should be devoted to faith and virtue, to confidence and vision of the Dhamma." That's the end of the sutta. So here, you see, in this case, this man was very, very poor. But after passing away, he went up to Tavatimsa heaven and outshone the other Devas. So he thought, how can this be? So Sakka Devaraja said, don't envy him. When he was a human being, he had faith, virtue, learning, generosity and wisdom in the Dhamma Vinaya. Also, he says, Sakka Devaraja in the last verses, he says, when one has faith in the Tathagata and the Buddha, unshakable and well established. If one has unshakable faith in the Tathagata, that means one is already an Arya. And good conduct built on virtue dear to the noble ones. An Arya has virtue, has Aryan virtue. And then one has confidence in the Sangha, and one's view is straightened out. That means one has right view. If one has right view, one is already has entered the stream, or is a Sotapanna. You see, when a person understands the Dhamma, has attained right view, then your blessings are very great. That's why this follower of the Buddha, he outshone the other Devas. So it's very good to get right view. Once you get right view, you become an Arya, and will never fall into the woeful plains again. You are either only born as a Deva or Devi, or a human being, and you have so much blessings. You go to heaven also, you outshine the Devas. You come to the human plane also, you will have a lot of luck. You have a lot of great fortune compared with other humans. 11.15 at Savatthi, Jeta's Grove. Then Sakka Raja approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, stood to one side and said to him, Noble Sir, what is a delightful place? And the Buddha said, shrines in parks and woodland shrines, well-constructed lotus ponds. These are not worth a 16th part of a delightful human being, whether in a village or forest, in a valley or on the plain. Wherever the Arahants dwell is truly a delightful place. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha is telling Sakka Raja, wherever the Arahants dwell, that place is a delightful place. Why? Because Arahants, their mind is very tranquil, very calm, very peaceful. So it influences the environment. Wherever you can find holy men, the environment becomes in a way holy, because the devas and the devis will protect this holy person, and the place around there will be very peaceful. So that's why the Buddha said, in the Mangala Sutta, it's good to see Aryas, noble ones, and to support holy men. If we live near holy men, then we also will have a good influence on us. 11.18 at Savatthi. There the Blessed One said this, monks, once in the past, Sakka Raja addressed his charioteer, Matali thus, harness the chariot with its team of 1,000 thoroughbreds, friend Matali. Let us go to the park grounds to see the beautiful scenery. Yes, your lordship, Matali the charioteer replied. Then he harnessed the chariot with its team of 1,000 thoroughbreds and announced to Sakka Raja, the chariot has been harnessed, dear sir. You may come at your own convenience. Let's stop here for a moment. You see this Sakka Raja, whenever he wants to go for a ride, makan angin, he will ask his charioteer, the driver Matali, to get his horses. He has 1,000 white horses. So you see in heavens also you have animals. In the suttas we find in the heavens we have many animals. We have, as mentioned, we have like Naga, snake spirits. We have Garuda, bird spirits. Then we have fishes also, Timingala, mentioned huge fishes, because in the heavens also got the ocean, very big ocean. So, and not to mention Ganesha, the Indian elephant god. Then monk Sakka Raja, descending from the Vajayanta palace, raised his joint hands in reverential salutation and worshipped the different quarters, that means the north, south, east, west. Then Matali the charioteer addressed Sakka in verse, these all humbly worship you, those versed in the triple Veda, all the Katyas, nobles reigning on earth, the 4 great kings and the glorious 30. So who, O Sakka, is that spirit to whom you bow in worship? Stop here for a moment. So before Sakka Raja entered the chariot, he bowed to the 4 directions. And Matali was surprised. Matali the Deva, he said, these who are versed in the triple Vedas, that means the Brahmins worship you, and the noble caste, the warrior caste, the Katyas, they also worship you. And the 4 great heavenly kings also worship you. And the 30 Devarajas in the Tapa Timsa heaven, they also worship you. So whom are you worshipping? And Sakka Raja said, these all humbly worship me, those versed in the triple Veda, all the Katyas reigning on earth, the 4 great kings and the glorious 30. But I worship those endowed with virtue, those long trained in concentration, those who have properly gone forth with the holy life their destination. I worship as well, O Matali, those householders making merit, the lay followers possessed of virtue, who righteously maintain a wife. Now, I stop here for a moment. So here Sakka Raja says that firstly he worships those ascetics or the monks who lead the holy life, who truly lead the holy life. And then he also worships the householders, lay people who are virtuous and do good deeds. And then Matali said, those whom you worship, my Lord Sakka, are indeed the best in the world. I too will worship them, those whom you worship, Vasava. So then the Buddha said, having given this explanation, having worshipped the different quarters, the Deva king Magava, Suja's husband, the chief, climbed into his chariot. So he went and to enjoy himself. So here you see, Devaraja like this, Sakka, he also respects holy men, those who walk the holy path, and even virtuous lay people. Hopefully, Sakka Devaraja is keeping an eye on us. So actually, as long as a person is virtuous, there will be beings that protect you if you are virtuous. Just like Sakka Devaraja here says, he respects those virtuous people. 11.22 at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove. There the Blessed One said this, monks, once in the past, a certain ugly, deformed yakka sat down on the seat of Sakka Devaraja. Stop here for a moment. Yakka is a deva, is one of the heavenly beings. Those devas in the Sakka Devaraja's realm are also called yakkas. But this fellow is an ugly, deformed yakka. He went to sit on the king's Sakka Devaraja, the king's throne. He went to sit there. Thereupon the Tavatimsa Devas found fault with this, grumbled and complained about it, saying, it is wonderful indeed, sir. It is amazing indeed, sir. This ugly, deformed yakka has sat down on the seat of Sakka Devaraja. But to whatever extent the Tavatimsa Devas found fault with this, grumbled and complained about it, to the same extent that yakka became more and more handsome, more and more comely, more and more graceful. Then monks, the Tavatimsa Devas approached Sakka and said to him, here, dear sir, an ugly, deformed yakka has sat down on your seat. And then they explain that the more angry they got, the more beautiful the yakka became. And then they said, that must be anger-eating yakka. The more anger you have, it feeds on anger. Then monks, Sakka Devaraja approached that anger-eating yakka. Having approached, he arranged his upper robe over one shoulder, knelt down with his right knee on the ground, and raising his joined hands in reverential salutation towards that yakka, he announced his name 3 times. I, dear sir, am Sakka Devaraja. I, dear sir, am Sakka Devaraja. To whatever extent Sakka announced his name, to the same extent that yakka became uglier and uglier, and more deformed, until he disappeared right there. Then monks, having sat down on his own seat, instructing the Tavatimsa Devas, Sakka Devaraja on that occasion recited these verses. I am not one afflicted in mind, nor easily drawn by anger's whirl. I never become angry for long, nor does anger persist in me. When I am angry, I don't speak harshly, and I don't praise my virtues. I keep myself well restrained, out of regard for my own good. That's the end of the sutta. So actually, when the Devas came to tell Sakka Devaraja that this is what happened, they saw this ugly yakka, sitting on his throne, and then the more they got angry, the more they grumbled, the more beautiful this Yakha became. Then Sakka Devaraja realized that this must be an anger-eating Yakha. So he knew what to do. He went to him and then paid respect to him, knelt down on his knee and all that, and announced his name. The more respect he gave to this ugly Deva, the more uglier it became. And he continued doing this until that Yakha disappeared. So, when we reflect on this sutta, we can think perhaps this type of anger-eating Yakha is also inside us. This demon is also inside us. Whenever we get more and more angry, the demon inside us becomes more and more powerful, more and more bigger, more and more beautiful. So the only way to defeat this demon inside us is not to get angry, because it feeds on anger. So every person we have this good and evil inside us. So the evil inside us wants us to be angry, wants us to be jealous, wants us to do all the evil things, to break the precepts and all that. So if we listen to this evil inside us, then it will become stronger. So the only way is to do the opposite, and then you will become smaller and smaller. That's the end of the suttas I'm going to read in this Sakka Samyutta, which means that I finished 11 Samyuttas, and that is the first book, Sagata Vaga, the first book of the Samyutta Nikaya, we have finished. So the next book starts with Nidana Samyutta. Nidana Samyutta, that is dependent origination. Actually, Nidana means causation. Instead of doing it today, I think I will do it tomorrow night, because it's a totally new subject. And also this Nidana book, this chapter is one of the tough nuts we have to crack to understand. So I'll only start on it tomorrow. So if you have anything to discuss tonight, you can discuss. Yeah. I guess if the devas die, just like us, we will be reborn according to our karma. Yes, I would think so. It's only the higher devas that they don't fight. Lower devas fight and kill. What page is that? 230. 330. Which one? He gave gifts considerately. 638. Let's look at the footnote. 638. I guess it means he gives considerably, gives a lot. I think it means gives a lot. I think seldom, because their character is such, they are not so interested in the Dhamma, they don't practice the Dhamma so well, whereas Sakka Devaraja, he values the Dhamma. So he practices according to Dhamma, so he wants to learn Dhamma. There is one sutta where one of the kings of the lowest heaven, 4 great heavenly kings, he came to tell the Buddha that many of the devas under the 4 great heavenly kings, they don't like the Buddha and they don't like the Buddha's disciples because the Buddha encourages people not to kill, not to steal, not to commit adultery and all that. And many of them, they have to kill maybe to get their food. And they find it difficult to keep the precepts. So because they find it difficult to keep the precepts, so they don't like the Buddha and the Buddha's disciples. So this Devaraja, he taught a chant to the Buddha, and he asked the Buddha, Atanatya chant, to teach the monks. And this chant, when you chant this one, we sometimes we chant at night. We start with Vipasisa namatu chakumantasa sirimato si kisapi namatu. We praise the 6 Buddhas, the 7 Buddhas. And then after that, they recite the names of the Devarajas, all the Taikor, all the Tiger Generals of the Deva world. So when we recite all the names of the fierce Devas, so if any Deva wants to harm you, when he hears you reciting all these names, then he gets frightened. So it is one of the protection chants. So from this you can see that not all Devas like monks. Some of them don't like monks. In fact, in the Vinaya books, it is mentioned that if there may be certain places where you have some fierce spirit which can harm a monk. The Buddha says a monk should not go there unless the monk has got psychic power. And not all of them. It depends on their blessings. Just like in the human realm. In fact, the human realm is quite similar to the heavens. In the human realm, you have people who are very well off. They have an extremely good life. On the other hand, you have people like in Africa or India who are very poor and who suffer a lot. So it all depends on our karma. You can't want to choose. Oh, I want to go here, and be reborn here, reborn there. All depends on your karma. This is what people say, but I think it's not necessary. Not necessary to be after your human birth to come back as a human being, because this heaven rebirth is like a rest. Like a rest before you come down and exert yourself again. Because you look at our Buddha, our Bodhisattva, he mentioned that when he met the Buddha Kassapa, he was a Brahmin. He was a Brahmin and he didn't want to see the Buddha Kassapa even. But his friend pulled him, so he had to go. And then his friend asked the Buddha to teach some Dhamma to this Bodhisattva out of compassion. And the Buddha did. And after hearing the Dhamma, this Bodhisattva must have attained stream entry because he renounced the home life and became a monk under the Buddha Kassapa. And after that lifetime, he was reborn in the Tusita heaven. And after Tusita heaven, he came down to the human world as Siddhartha Gautama and became enlightened. So you see, he went to heaven. It was not time wasted. It's like go up there and recuperate. Get some inspiration, get some rest. and come down, and then you have to strive. It's just like human beings, when human beings go to war and kill each other. But then, it's not that, sometimes not that you like to do it, it's just that you have to go collectively, you have to defend your country, you have to defend your people. So the karma is not so heavy. I'm not sure. And he can change. Just like human beings. There are so many beautiful looking human beings. Sometimes you get an ugly looking one. Yeah, they are in the heavenly world. You can't see because they're so far away. And secondly, they are in a different world. They are in a different realm. Just like if devas are around us or ghosts are around us, we cannot see. Our human eye cannot see, but they are around us. So in the same way, these heavens, they are up there. But if you use your telescope to look, you won't be able to see because they are in a different realm. I'm not sure. Because Chinese, we don't have so systematic description of the heavens like the Buddha has described. In Penang, normally we follow what Bhante Suwano says. We call him Thi Kong, which probably the equivalent is Dục Wong Tai Tai. Dục Wong Tai Tai. Dục Wong Tai Tai. Okay, we stop here for tonight. Transfer merit.